Ashley, and today I'm going to show you how to make this Tennessee Volunteers logo in crochet. So I'm a Nebraska fan, and I know that I enjoyed making my own Nebraska scarf using this format for the logo part of it. So let me know who your favorite team is down in the comments, and maybe in the future I can make a video on one of their logos as well. But I really like this little motif because it's a great size that can be added to a bunch of different projects. It can be used at the end of a scarf like I did mine. It can be incorporated into a beanie, a sweater, a blanket, whatever you can think of, you can incorporate this into maybe even like pot holders or something for the kitchen. But it's really simple to make and works up really quickly. So let's get into the tutorial. The materials you'll need to make the Tennessee Volunteers logo is first, obviously, yarn. And I'm going to do white for the background and orange for the tee. And I love this yarn. It's acrylic yarn from Hobby Lobby. I also got Yarn Bee in orange because they didn't have the right color of orange in I Love This Yarn, at least not in the store when I went. So to get the right color of orange yarn, I have to mix and match brands. But they're both a weight 3. But I do want to point out, these are both weight 4, medium weight yarns. And I don't know if you can see, I think you probably can, on the video that they're actually kind of significantly different in the thickness. So the I Love This Yarn is thicker than the Yarn Bee. And these are both weight 4 medium weight yarns. So it just kind of goes to show that even within the yarn weights, there is some variety in terms of the actual thickness of the yarn. But regardless, it will work fine. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And the other materials you'll need are scissors to cut your yarn, a yarn needle for weaving in ends, if you choose to weave in ends with a yarn needle, which I prefer. And I'm going to use a size G 4.25 millimeter crochet hook for this. And that will make it just a little bit tighter and smaller because this is a fairly large logo. If you want a larger motif at the end, use a larger hook and you'll get a looser, larger square. If you want it to be even tighter and smaller, use a smaller hook. So to start off, when we're working off of a crochet start chart, which is available if you go to my blog post, which is linked in the description below the video, there'll be a link to the PDF version of this chart and also the written pattern available on that blog post for you. So definitely check it out. But when you're reading a chart like this, you're going to start from the bottom right and work your way right to left for row 1. Row 2 is left to right, and then back right to left. So all of the odd rows, 1, 3, 5, so on, are worked from right to left. If you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, it would be the opposite. Now, for the bottom, our first row, row 1, needs to have 23 single crochets. So to start this, I'm going to do a foundation chain, and I'm going to do 23 plus 1, so that with the turning chain, I get the correct number of single crochets in the first row. So I'm going to start by chaining 24. Okay, 24. Now I'm going to turn and work row 1, which is 23 single crochets in white. So working in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to do a single crochet. Now, if you're not sure exactly how to work into the foundation chain, I do have a video on that. It's called Working into the Foundation Chain, I think. But if you Google Crafty with Ashy foundation chain or search that on YouTube, you should find it. And it's super, super informative, gives you all the different ways that you can work into the foundation chain so that you end up with a nice, even, consistent finish. So I'm just working 23 single crochets across. Now, if you're not sure how to do a single crochet or a foundation chain, if you're kind of new to crochet and this might be your first kind of dive into it, check out a playlist that I have on my channel. You can just go to my channel and look at crochet stitches and crochet terminology, and I have very short 30-45 second videos on all of these different things, which will show you exactly how to do all of them. Okay, so coming to the end of row 1 here, just working my 23rd single crochet. Okay, now I'm going to turn and work row 2, which is another 23 single crochets. Now for this one, I do want to take this starting tail that I have and go ahead and weave it in as I go so that I don't have to weave it in later. So to do that, I'm just going to turn like normal and then insert my hook, but I'm going to pull that yarn, that tail, over my hook there, and then finish my single crochet with that kind of tucked down against the stitch so that I'm working over it. Okay, and then I'm just going to do that until it runs out basically, and then just keep going. And this is the same technique that I'm going to use for carrying along the color for the color changing, because we're not going to cut and reattach the yarn every time we change colors. We're going to carry along the yarn, and so we do the same thing. We hold that yarn right against the stitch and work under that when we go into through the stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop, and then over it when we yarn over and pull through 2 to finish the single crochet. So just continue to work over that until it runs out. And this row again is 23 single crochets, all in white. And then row 3 is where we start doing color changing to create the pattern. And so this style of crochet is kind of like mosaic crochet, where you're using just the single crochet stitch, very simple stitch, and then color changing to create a pattern. And in this case, it is the Tennessee Volunteers logo. Okay, 23. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn and start my next row. And so this is row 3. So if I look at my pattern, I see that I have 6 single crochets in white before I change colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start those single crochets. When I do single crochet, I don't do a turning chain. Some people do a chain 1 and then turn. I just pull my loop a little bit looser and go straight into a single crochet. I find to get more even edges that way. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the 6th single crochet I go ahead and start it. So insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then instead of finishing that stitch in the first color, I grab my next yarn and just pull up the loop to finish that stitch, and then I kind of pull down on the first yarn to make sure that that loop is the right tension. And then I'm just going to carry both that tail from the orange and the working white yarn along with me. So I'm just tucking them both against this stitch, the top of that previous row, and I'm going to work 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 single crochets in orange. And on the 11th, I start the single crochet with an insert hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I switch and finish, instead of going with the orange, I finish the yarn over and pull through 2 with the white. Now I'm going to drop the orange, pick up the white, and finish off the row in white. Now it is important that your tension when you're switching colors is correct. So when you're carrying it along, you might be holding it a little bit loosely and there might be some like waviness in it, or you might be kind of pulling it kind of tight. Either way, before you switch the colors, you want to make sure that the tension of that carry along yarn is appropriate, or else you'll end up with a wavy project that the tension is off. And I feel like in terms of crocheting, tension is the main thing that beginners struggle with, is just maintaining that tension. Even more experienced crocheters, sometimes we have varying tension and then our projects get a little bit wavy instead of having nice square edges. Okay, so there's the first row of color changing, which is row 3. Now I'm going to work row 4, which is work left to right. In this pattern, it doesn't matter so much because it is symmetrical. It's the same on both sides. So whether I'm looking at it from right to left or left to right, I'm going to have the same number of stitches. Other patterns are not so symmetrical. So you will need to follow the odd right to left, even left to right. But this one, it doesn't matter that much. So when I turn my work, when I'm carrying along yarn, I am going to turn the work just like I would normally, like I'm turning a page. And then the carry along yarn gets wrapped behind, and you just want to make sure that you're going under it for that first one and then over it to finish it. And then you want to make sure that the tension is right again on that turn, so that you don't have a extra loop of yarn out here of that orange. And for this row, it's going to be the same, where I crochet 6 in white. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the 6th, switching to orange, drop the white, pick up the orange, crochet 11 in orange. On the 11th stitch, this is number 11, start it in orange, pick up the white and finish it. Switch and do 6 single crochet in white. Okay, turn, and next row, I'm just going to keep following my pattern, making sure that when I turn, I have that tension right on the carry along yarn. So now I'm on row 5, which is going to be 8 single crochets in white, and then 7 in orange, and then 8 in white. Switching to orange on the 8th. Six, 7, and switching to white. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish following the pattern all the way up. When I come to the last row of color changing, I'll pick back up the video and show you how I finish off the color changing and then finish off the project. All right, one more thing actually to note before I kind of cut off the video until the end. As you go, your yarn will start to get twisted because you're always dropping the one yarn and picking up the other one in the same direction. So if it gets to the point where you're feeling like you're really having to like separate it all the time, just take your hook out and just turn your project, twist it in the opposite direction so that the yarns get untangled from each other, and then you'll have an easier time maintaining your tension and not getting those tangled. All right, now for real, I'm going to cut off the video and pick up at row 22. Okay, so I'm starting the final row of color changing, which is row 22, and I'm just going to do this row like all the other rows, changing colors on the last half of the single crochet, carrying the yarn along, making sure my tension is appropriate in the carry along yarn. And then when I get to the end of this row, I will show you what I do to finish off that color changing area. Okay, final orange stitch here. Start the single crochet in orange, finish in white, drop the orange, 2 single crochet in white. So now for this, I don't want to just cut the yarn and have to weave in an end later. I don't really love weaving in ends, so I'm gonna turn and carry that orange along for this next row, which is just, row 23 is just all white single crochets. So I'm just gonna carry that orange yarn along for this whole row, and then I'll cut it at the end of it. And then I won't have to worry about going back and weaving in that end at all. Now I do have to say, this is the first time that I have bought the Yarn Bee, it's called Soft Secret, is the line or the version of Yarn Bee that this one is, and it's a 100% acrylic yarn. It is super, super soft. I will give them that. Very, very soft. But with the weight of it being, you know, a bit thinner than what I would consider a typical weight for yarn, and the yarn also wants to split with crocheting. The hook wants to go kind of in between the twisted fibers of the yarn instead of just gliding smoothly around it. It really wants to split. And so I don't prefer that in a yarn. Plus it was more expensive for a smaller skein than I Love This yarn. And so I think, you know, I'm going to stick with I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby. These are both from Hobby Lobby. But I'm going to stick with I Love This yarn because I don't find that it splits as much. It's also super soft. And it's just a little bit thicker, more of a traditional weight for. Okay, so now that I'm done with this row, I am gonna kind of pull it. You can see I kind of pulled it tight there, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut that tail, and then I'm gonna stretch it back out to the correct tension, and then you can see that I don't have an end to weave in. So now I just have to do my final row of single crochet, row 24, and it's just all white single crochets, and then I'll fasten off and weave in the ends. Okay, so final stitch, I'm gonna cut a tail, and then I'm gonna yarn over and pull up one more loop to fasten off, and then I'm gonna take my yarn needle and thread it through. And I just prefer to use a yarn needle to weave in my ends versus using the crochet hook. You can absolutely use a crochet hook if that's what you prefer, but I find the yarn needle to be more efficient. It's just quicker and easier. If you haven't tried using a yarn needle to weave in your ends, I do recommend it because I didn't for a long time. I just never even really thought about it or knew about it. And then when I saw it, I was like, yes, this is awesome because it makes weaving in ends so much faster. Also, there is not a right or wrong way to weave in ends as long as you're going back kind of and forth through stitches enough where it's going to be secure. So some people kind of zigzag their way through the project. Some do like I do. I go down one row and then turn, kind of work my way into another row, and then go back the other direction, kind of up the other row. And I just kind of shove the yarn needle through a bunch of stitches and then just pull it in, pull it out, I mean. Now, I do the same thing where I pull it a little bit tight, cut, and then stretch it back out so that it's the right tension, and that keeps it from having a little extra tail sticking out. And there is the Crochet Tennessee Volunteers logo. So again, here is the finished crocheted Tennessee Volunteers logo. I think that this is, again, just really fun. It's a nice way to personalize a gift for somebody or to make something special for yourself. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and check out my channel for tons more crochet content. Thanks so much for watching.